Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Anneke, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Good morning. I am great. How about you?
Exceptional, getting better every day. I do have a question for you. Did I say your name correctly?
So it's a tough one because English speakers really hate putting an emphasis on a schwa vowel. So it's technically Anneke.
Anneke. Okay, cool. Thank you. Even though there's no A at the end, right?
It's Dutch. So my mom's name has two J's in it, and none of them are pronounced the way you'd expect. It's a whole thing.
So Anneke. Okay, I like it actually. And I think we did have this conversation before. I wanted to have you explain it because the way you explain it makes a lot more sense, right? So I want to get to know you a little bit more than I already have. And I'm excited for today's conversation because I do want to get to know where you were born. You said Dutch and so forth, and you already told me a little bit about your mom. So tell me where you were born and who influenced you before the age of 10.
I was born on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. I grew up in this small tourist trap of a New England town. You know, we've got a famous lighthouse and gorgeous beaches that are cold all year round. So I really don't know why people come visit, but that's another point. And when I was growing up, when I was 7, my dad passed away. And after he passed, my mom quit her job as a physical therapist, and she became a coach. Back when life coaching wasn't a thing,
Right.
it was just starting out. And she went, I remember she would like have me stay with friends or family for a weekend at a time when she went to California to do these training sessions. And she became an executive coach and a coach for widows. And so one of those was money and one of those was passion, but she managed to balance them really well.
Wow. Really incredible. Wow. That even before it was popular, right? Because now every other person you run into is a coach.
Yeah. Now it's a very hip thing to be. It's very, especially because it's so unregulated. You don't need credentials to call yourself a coach.
Right.
So really, people are sort of flocking to the profession. It doesn't stick for a lot of people. I'm amazed that it stuck for my mom because people hadn't heard about it.
So at 7 years old, you're noticing that your mom's life changed. Your life changed. Your dad passed away. Her husband passed away. And she needed to change who she was. Without her necessarily understanding, it changed who you are as well. Right? Tell me about that change, because it had to have been traumatic in both you losing your dad and then your mom sometimes not even being there. How was that for you?
It was an exercise in growing up quickly.
Mm,
Absolutely. Not even the weekends away, because we sort of treated those as a vacation.
mhm,
I think she was much more stressed out at the idea of not being around me than I was of not being around her. I was
right.
like, "Oh, great, I get to hang out with my friends for a whole weekend." And meanwhile, she's on, planes flying back and forth and uh, doing trust falls out of trees in the redwoods. True
Oh my gosh.
story. True story. That's what the coaching school did to build to build community essentially.
Mm,
But I I definitely struggled for a few years. I mean, it doesn't help that I'm neurodivergent and I was not diagnosed as a child. I was diagnosed as an adult.
mm,
So I struggled socially. I struggled. The only realm that I didn't struggle in was academically. I excelled academically.
nice.
Um, and to this day, I couldn't tell you exactly why. My
Mm,
my brain takes in and processes information in a way that just seems to be different than other people, that happens to lend itself to academic achievement. Um, but our relationship, it got both closer and much more fraught. It
mm,
was very it was very difficult to be close to each other because
mhm,
we're both very empathetic
mm,
and we were both in so much pain.
right.
So we grew close out of necessity, and we also had this wall that we built between us to protect each other, except it didn't work because building walls between each other never works.
It never does.
I like so it's been a process for us, especially as I grew up as an adult and got more independence. When I went to college, she absolutely fell apart.
Mm,
Um, just internally, like she kept it together on the outside. I also fell apart in some ways,
mm,
but I had this protective sphere of I need to go to class. I
mm,
need to I have these new responsibilities, this new exciting world, so that kept me bolstered in a big way. Um, and now we're actually considering starting our own podcast and sitting
nice.
down together and having these hard conversations of what it's like growing up with a parent or raising a child who's alike in certain ways. We both have rampant ADHD and also different.
Mm,
She's like, she's this thin brunette, like keeps her hair super short. And I wear this. Like, I'm I'm
right.
like I take after my dad physically, and I have this which doesn't let me fade into the background, and I love
Mhm,
wearing this brand is called Holy Clothing. I love wearing crazy flamboyant dresses, and she's a white turtleneck person, and that's
mhm,
not an insult. She
right,
just
right.
wears white turtlenecks. She loves them.
Mm,
So we really have grown together in our acceptance of each other's differences and our celebration of them.
mm. Wow, incredible. When you went away to college and you said your mom kind of fell apart inside, and you kind of did too, but you were so busy with college life. Did you realize that she fell apart? Did she tell you later? How do you know that she fell apart?
She told me later. She told me because she didn't want to trouble me because she could tell that I was struggling.
Mm,
Um, I had a roommate who like didn't really talk to me. We ran in very separate circles. Um, I hadn't really found my people yet,
Mhm.
and she didn't want to put a burden on me, and I didn't want to put a burden on her. So we didn't talk that we talked frequently, but not deeply.
Right.
And it was only after we both came out of it a little bit. I joined a co-ed frat that was very much my people. Those are the people that I still keep in contact with.
Oh, wow.
Um, and she met those people, and she saw that I had this newfound family,
Mm.
and she was able to let go a little bit and reassure herself that I was going to be okay.
How did she, I know we're getting into you, but your mom obviously affects you. How did she become okay?
I don't think we've talked about it explicitly,
Mm.
but I think when I was able to relax and open up a bit, that was her cue
Mm.
that I wasn't this is going to sound dramatic, but it's her cue that I wasn't in danger.
Mhm.
It's her cue that I wasn't flailing. I was willing to ask for help. I was, becoming an adult, and not just any adult, but a capable adult.
Mhm.
Um, and she I became much more willing to talk to her. She would come and visit and like bring the dog, and all my friends would crowd around the dog and ooh and ah, and she would
Right, right.
bake muffins, and she and I think this is actually a thing with a lot of parents, is your identity for 18 years becomes
Mm.
parent.
Mhm.
She had to do a little bit of reclaiming of her own life. She had to do a little bit of soul searching, a little bit of who am I now that I am still a parent, but I don't, it's not a 24/7 thing anymore.
Right.
Um, so I think that reclaiming her own life in a big way, um, she, this is going to sound like a joke. She rented out my bedroom. She turned a corner of our house, because we lived in a relatively small house, but she put a door in and turned my bedroom and the room next to it and the downstairs bathroom into an Airbnb.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. That's creative.
Yeah, no, it was a great project. It got her involved and engaged, and I know that she's doing well when she's rearranging the furniture a lot.
Mm.
Like, that's my sign that she's really invested in her surroundings and
Mm.
looking to improve and expand where she's
Mhm.
at.
Nice. That's awesome. So tell me, who was the most influential person for you growing up?
I mean, it's in the most literal sense, it was her. She
Mm.
was she was she was the person. She was
Mm.
the one that was there.
Mhm.
Um, for better or for worse, she got me a copy of the book, Codependent No More, as an
Mm.
adult, and said, "You should read this." And I went, "That feels a little codependent to me to tell you that I should be reading this book." And then she forgot about the incident, and
Mm.
2 years later got me another copy of the same book.
No way.
I'm dead serious. I have 2 copies of Codependent No More, and she's like, "Well, I think you need to read it twice." So,
That's too funny.
yeah, so really in terms of literally, like, the most influence on me, it's gotta be her.
Mm.
Um, and I for some reason, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to say this. My cousins are coming to mind.
Mm.
I have a bunch of cousins, but 2 cousins specifically I was really close to growing up, and they were both adopted, one from Texas, one from Uganda, I believe. And they they were the closest thing I had to, like, same age siblings. I have a half
Mhm.
sister, but she's 18 years older than me, so
Mhm.
that relationship was much more aunt-like.
Mhm.
Um, and they gave me I feel like they helped shape my compassion in a really big way.
Mm.
And not just my person to person compassion, but my concept of social justice possibly, because
Explain how they did that for you, if you don't mind.
they're both Black. And
Okay.
so I I grew up with this understanding that they were having a different life experience than I was,
Mhm.
despite being raised in very similar families because of their skin color.
Mm.
My aunt, they grew up in this very rich Connecticut town, and my aunt ended up pulling them out of school and homeschooling them because the persistent microaggressions
Mm.
were just were just too much. It was not a good environment because there was no one there that looked like them and no one there that understood them from both the on both the racial aspect and the adopted aspect.
Mm.
So I grew up with like age appropriate history books, like the um if you sailed on the Mayflower and if you lived at the time of the Civil War, that was the big one. I learned about the racial history of this country and that the way that we viewed and still view racial differences is
Mhm.
wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and that gave me I didn't register at the time, but that gave me a really keen sense of a keen sense of right and wrong, of compassion, of just an appreciation for the level of injustice that some people are still suffering today.
Yeah, that is for sure. It's incredible when we think that there is no social injustice anymore, but yet it is rampant and it's so all over the place, really. And it's so sad that it's still out there and the people are treating people differently just because of their skin color. And they may not say it out loud because they don't want to get in trouble, but yet they still do these little things, like you said, little micro things that they make insinuations. And I don't know, it's just, it's horrible.
Yeah, and I have a it's I have a lot of privilege. I am white.
Mm,
I stand in I stand in the powerful role in the American society right now. But it's grown it's grown for me from this theoretical outrage to a very personal one because 2 of my partners right now are Black.
mm,
And so I am still very much engaging in that dynamic, and now as an adult, I have a lot more capacity to say, "Well, let's do something about it."
mm. You just said two things that I want to touch on, right? One is you called yourself an adult when you only look 18.
I'm in my 30s, I promise.
Not 19, you sure?
No. I'm 31. I do assure you.
Ah.
Thank goodness I am out of my 20s. I promise I would not do that again for love or money.
But isn't it amazing that you're able to look so young and yet have the wisdom of your actual age to maybe have someone mistaken you as younger and not realize the capability that you currently have?
It's I I get underestimated a lot,
Mhm.
and I think part of that is almost deliberate on my part. In social settings, I can be very fun
Mhm.
and a little airheaded, and it's not necessarily it's not an act, it is who I am, but I think people discount the fact that I have multiple sides and I'm great in a crisis. You
Mhm.
put me in an emergency situation and I can handle it. Um, and when I'm with my clients, I'm not worried about impressing them or calming them, or
Mhm.
I'm just worried about hearing them. So I've been told I look young, and on the phone, I've been told I sound older than I am. So I guess averaging out, I look and sound my age.
You did mention something else, and I wanna just take a quick little break and share this with you, and then we're gonna come back. Take a look.
Mhm.
In a world where words shape destinies and connections forge futures, this November 22nd to the 24th, Speaking Prowess brings you the ultimate hands-on workshop. Reserve your seat now.
So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is you said my partner. So let's talk about that. What does that mean?
Oh, so I am polyamorous. That means that I have multiple romantic connections.
Mm.
Um, and so I currently have 4 boyfriends. You're giving me that look.
Here's the question that I have for you. Do they know of each other?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So clarifying point here.
Right. That's important.
Polyamory falls under the umbrella of what we call ethical non-monogamy.
Mhm.
So monogamy, 2 people make a couple.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Um, in ethical non-monogamy, everyone knows the situation, everyone agrees to the situation. And in my version of polyamory, which is sometimes called kitchen table polyamory, I know I'm throwing a lot of terms at
Kitchen
you.
table.
I
I hear
promise
you.
we'll try to get to them. In kitchen table polyamory, my partners don't just know about each other, they know each other. My first polyamorous partner introduced me to 2 of the men that I'm dating, 3 of the men that I'm dating now. Sorry, I had to.
Right.
Yeah, no, he's responsible for 3 of my current connections.
Gotcha.
Um, and I to I'll give you a quick snapshot, and that will probably generate more questions, but,
Of course.
um, so my boyfriend is married. I lived with him and his wife in their basement for about 9 months because my apartment ceiling fell in.
Mm.
Now she is pregnant with twins, and I am going to be the godmother.
Mm.
And my ex, who is the one who introduced me to them, who is her boyfriend, is going to be the godfather. Have I baffled you yet?
Not yet, but it sounds like the web is growing, right?
I have a map It's
I,
intricate.
I would imagine that. So let me tell you what, in my teenage years, I had 7 girlfriends
At the same time.
at the same time. It was almost one for every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be, and they didn't know each other, but they knew that, I'm only seeing you on Tuesday because I know, and after a while they were like, well, I want to see you more. I'm like, well, I'm going to be in this other neighborhood. I'm going to be in this other place. And so eventually that all fell apart. And as much as I wanted to keep it, it didn't work out for me, um, because they didn't want to share, right? So that's where the difference falls in. And I didn't mind sharing. Right?
Yeah, love is infinite. The hours in the day are finite.
That is true.
So I can have 4 boyfriends because I only actually have a standing date with one of them every week. The others are sort of everyone's so busy. One's about to have twins. So we have a very informal, loosey-goosey type of schedule where we're like, I would like to see you at least once every 2 weeks. I would like to see you this much. My Wednesdays are spoken for, but other than that, we're all very independent.
So let me ask you, when and at what point did you realize that this is something you wanted to be involved in? Did it just kind of fall on your lap? Did somebody talk about it? Was it an idea that you came up with? Obviously has a name to it, right? Tell us how that started for you, and what was the attraction?
So I started learning about polyamory from a webcomic. It is called Kimchi Cuddles, and it is all about their life and their journey with polyamory. It's practical advice, it's philosophical musings, it's absolutely delightful. But I never thought that was me. I always thought I would not be able to set good boundaries. And then I I was in a 3.5-year monogamous relationship. I moved from Massachusetts to Pittsburgh for him. And 6 months later, it fell apart. Que sera, sera, and all that jazz. And then almost a year after that, I was still in Pittsburgh because I really fell in love with the city. And I went to a party. And I met this guy. And he's like, yeah, I'm polyamorous. I have these partners, told me about his partners, introduced me to a bunch of other people, like clearly like new people, knew this community. And it didn't hurt that he was really cute. So a week later, we were still chatting and we were like, I've never done polyamory before, but if you're willing to essentially teach me the ropes, like introduce me to your people, explain the boundaries to me, and he was willing to be open and communicative. I said, you know what? This is the year of do it scared. So I did it scared.
Do it scared. I love that. But do it
Yeah.
anyway, right?
Exactly. It was the year of stepping out of my comfort zone. And like literally a month later, I had just met these people. I went on a big community-wide camping trip, like a whole weekend long. And that's where he introduced me to, I guess, my Wednesday date. I'm still seeing him 5 years later.
No, look at that.
He introduced me to his girlfriend and her then fiance, who then became my boyfriend as well. And may I say, this woman was so excited when I showed up dating her boyfriend and then started dating her husband. She was thrilled. She after we started dating, she greeted me at the door, jumping up and down. Like, just, she has my whole heart.
So this is beyond the first time I've ever heard of something like this. I've heard of like wife swapping, stuff of that nature, but where somebody's excited to meet you because is it, and don't take this the wrong way, is it because you're giving them a break from that relationship?
Oh, you know what? For some people, maybe. For us, it's really not. There is, so people have different connections with their metamors. And a metamor is a partner's partner, someone who's also dating the same person you're dating. And people can be kind of awkward and standoffish.
Right.
And that's not wrong. That's not bad. It is what it is. And some people can say, well, I want to be friends, and they might just be friends. That's also totally fine. And then some people you make that independent connection with, and you realize we love the same person. We share this affection for whoever it is, and that makes us more alike than it does different. And it can be just absolutely wonderful and a beautiful opportunity. And it, like, again, it's not mandatory. It's not that in order to be a good polyamorous person, you have to be friends with your metamor. It's just, it's an opportunity. And when it happens, if it happens naturally, it's one of the most wonderful feelings in the world.
Incredible. So I've also heard, once you said that this is what you wanted to talk about, I did a little research, right? And I also heard that it does not necessarily have to be a sexual relationship, and it can also be on people who are of the same sex. It doesn't have to be, male female. It could be female female. It could be male male, and it doesn't have to be a physical relationship.
Yeah, I probably know more asexual polyamorous people than I do asexual monogamous people. Polyamory to me is about forming the most genuine, authentic connections with whoever comes into your life, and allowing those connections to turn into whatever they are meant to turn into. So that might be, I meet someone and, oh, we are meant to have a romantic connection. Or I might meet someone, go, we are meant to play D&D together.
Yeah.
That has happened too. But for me, I'm not closing myself off to any potential connections like I might have to do in a monogamous relationship. In a monogamous relationship, if my partner and I agree we're going to be exclusive in these ways,
Right.
I might have to say, okay, that means that this person that I have a romantic attraction to, I can't engage with them romantically. I have to set clear boundaries.
Right.
That works for some people. They don't want to, they only want to maintain one romantic connection. That's not, I've learned that that's not how I operate. I would not go back to that.
It allows you, I believe what I'm hearing from you is it allows you to have the freedom to love more, right? To share more, indulge even more. The question also, and you talked about one of your partners is already having twins. Are you looking for family in the near future, for the future, or are you looking to have a family, but not necessarily because you gave birth to someone?
I'm glad you clarified, because I was gonna poke that question a little bit. Um, I don't want to give birth to children.
Okay.
Um, and I right now, there is so much that I want to do and so much that I want to change in the world. I don't believe that I should be raising children right now. Um, and I could change my mind about that. I've had very passionate feelings that if I ever were to want to raise kids, I would foster and adopt. But right now, I'm totally happy to pour any love, affection, and nurturing that I might want to do towards these twins. Um, I so a nesting partner is someone that lives with you, you have financial entanglements, that sort of thing. I don't have a nesting partner right now. And while I'm open to the possibility, I'm not actively seeking it.
Gotcha.
It's one of those. I earlier I said que sera, sera, and that sort of sums up my approach to life, quite frankly. I learned very early on that you can't control the outcome. In a like in the most traumatic and sad way possible, I learned that just because you care about someone and they care about you, it doesn't mean that they're going to hang around forever. And they might not want to leave, but they're gonna.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, so I have this approach where I am open to receiving and giving love in this moment, and I do not attach myself to the future.
So let me ask you, is there a limit to how many people you would see?
I don't know if there's okay, yes, there's so yes, there's a limit in that there's a limit on, as I said before, hours in the day.
Correct.
Um, I don't cap myself at, I'm seeing 4 people. I will never see more than 4 people. Um, I think that probably right now I'm what we call polysaturated, which means I don't have room for any more people. Just if I want to give as much as possible to the people in my life and give as much as possible to myself. And like I'm growing a business. I own a house that needs, that needs to be taken care of. I've got a lot of myself that needs giving to right now.
So let me ask you, how do you deal with the emotional substance in your life when
Ooh.
when something gets deep and maybe you want to talk to the gentleman who's having twins and then the twins come along and he has to pull away because he has to focus on that, but you want that emotional connection still. So how do you deal with something like that? Because a lot of people who live alone, whoop, that's my camera getting crazy on me. A lot of people who live alone don't have that emotional connection to somebody at 3 a.m, to somebody, on a Sunday afternoon when they're home alone. How do you deal with something like that?
Oh, it's so interesting. You've really cut right to the heart of it.
I do.
Because because there are absolutely times when I have sat here with
Mm,
my phone going 4 boyfriends and no one will answer my half of them in texts. Like,
yeah.
there have absolutely been those days. And because initially my response was going to be, well, if one person needs to step away, I can process that with the other people in my
Mhm.
life.
Right.
But sometimes everyone is busy. It doesn't matter how many partners you have. Sometimes
Mhm.
everyone is busy.
Right.
Um and so that's when I turn to any number of things, honestly. That's when I turn to my friends. I think, who have I not talked to in a while?
Mm,
Who is who could use a hand right now? I can externalize that.
right.
I can say, if I'm hurting right now, maybe by helping someone, I can feel better.
Mm,
Sometimes I'll turn to my hobbies. I think I mentioned I have rampant ADHD. I
mhm.
have a lot of hobbies. Um, I knit, I crochet, I embroider, I make minis. Um, I play video games. I've been
Mhm.
do I've it's it's been a crazy week for everyone in my life, so I've been playing a lot of video games.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What's your favorite game?
Right now I'm playing Hollow Knight, but I think my favorite game ever is Subnautica.
Okay, never heard of them, either one. I'm not a gamer, but I just I wanted you to say it out there because maybe somebody listening will go, I like that game, right? Um, so before we go on, I want to share with you the one of the things that we're definitely doing in November. It's November 22nd. Take a look.
In a world where words shape destinies and connections forge futures, this November 22nd to the 24th, Speaking Prowess brings you the ultimate hands-on workshop. We have a lineup of some of the most influential communication experts in the industry. These are the voices that will guide you on a journey to enhance your ability to connect, influence, and succeed. Sifu Rafael, master instructor and founder of Speaking Prowess, blends communication and leadership to help you reach your full potential. Richard Walsh brings his strategic and tactical expertise to deliver rapid, lasting results for your business. Dr. Oliver T. Reed, the international multi-best-selling author and motivational speaker, known as the Writing Coach, will help you craft your messages with precision. Jose Escobar, a nationally recognized speaker and leader, will guide you in mastering personal development and leadership skills. This is more than just an event. It's a game-changing, skill-building experience. Walk away with communication prowess that transforms your personal and professional life. Speaking Prowess, where communication becomes your superpower. Reserve your seat now.
That's it. Come on down, people. It's going to be a blast.
I love those pictures of you. I just gotta say,
Oh, thank
those
you.
are great images.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And by the way, tomorrow, I'm going to put it up here for everybody to take a look. Tomorrow, we actually have a master class, and I'm going to put it up here. Anybody who wants to join us, do it. It's going to be an hour and a half, 90 minutes of great insights into communication. I'm doing my part on body language, if you will, right? The body speaks, and it's very interesting when we learn to use our body to communicate. And I'm sure in all your relationships, let me ask you a question now that I have you on here. Do you communicate differently with each one of your boyfriends? And if so, why?
I think that each pair
Mhm.
of people, each dyad, in romantic relationships and outside, in just friendships, create their own language and create their own mode of communication. So in a way, yes, I do communicate differently with each partner because I know them and I know how they operate. I know how they think. I know how to say the thing that I want to say so that they understand the spirit of it and not just the words.
Yeah. I love that you said the spirit of it, right? Because words have spirit, words have life, but it's if we know how to give those words life. And a lot of times, words really come to fruition when you include body, facial expressions, the eyes, the eyebrows, the way you say the words. It's so beautiful. That's why I love communication so much. Tell me a little bit about who your clientele is, what you're doing for them. Because I know we talked about a lot of what you're doing with your personal life, but now let's talk about your professional life, if you don't mind.
Sure. So my clientele is actually not all polyamorous. I market with a lot of polyamory in the marketing material, but really my approach isn't specific to multiple romantic relationships. My clientele, the thing that they have in common pretty much universally is shame. And it's this sense that I am bad, I am broken, I am too different, I am too this, I am too that, I am too much, I am too little. This sense of they come to me because they want to change part of themselves. And so our work together starts with sort of disabusing them of that notion. We're not going to lop off parts of your personality. We're going to give you better ways to express what you want and need. We're going to get you to embrace the parts of yourself that you think need to be changed, because even if they're, the negative voices in your head, your saboteurs, we call them, they're trying to tell you something. And that something isn't you're a bad person. They're trying to tell you something that you actually do need to hear. So we need to tune in and listen to that.
Yeah, listening is key, isn't it? So how do you find your clients? Is it through your community? Is it word of mouth? Do you advertise social media? Or how does someone new come to you? Is it through podcasts like you're doing now? Because we will have your website going up, and tell us the importance of acquiring even a new client to see your value.
So I guess so I'll start with your first question, because my brain's already working on your second. I mostly find people through word of mouth and social media. And I don't do aggressive outreach like I find a lot of coaches do. I don't just slide into people's DMs going, "Hey, it seems like you could use some self-improvement." Like that doesn't work for me personally, and for my method, for my clientele. A lot of what I do is just putting my message out there, putting my attitude and my perspective out there, and people find that. And if they find a nugget of information that they resonate with, they tend to reach out. They tend to go, "Hey, I value your insight." Which is kind of funny, because my coaching method is not as much about me giving insight as about me reflecting the client's insight back.
Right.
And when a new client comes to me, I make it very clear to them that, I'm in our initial, I do a free confidential consultation just for, risk mitigation purposes, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't want to, if at the end they don't want to work with me, or maybe I don't want to work with,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to find a very polite way to put this. Um,
I'll put it
I
for
am,
you. They're not
I
worth
am,
your time.
no, that's the thing, is that I am a woman
Mm-hmm.
in the alternative relationship sphere.
Mm.
I get some people thinking that I'm going to be someone romantic towards them.
Oh, wow. I get you.
That is a
That's a
very
no-no.
sanitized way of describing some of these consultations that I've had. But so I need to balance for myself, is this client someone that actually wants to do the work with me?
Mhm.
And that's not saying that they're not going to have blocks. That's not saying that they're not going to have moments when they dig in their heels and they don't want to move forward. And I'm also not going to force them forward. I'm going to
Mhm.
say, okay, where are we right now? What's the scenery like? And when you're willing to take a step forward, we can do it together.
Mm. Yeah, no, I get that. It's I thank you for bringing that to light. Also for letting us know how so many of us have to ward off all those people who DM us, and they slide in. They're like, "Oh, it looks like you need my help." I never asked for your help. And when it's something of that nature, what that coach or that person is telling the other person is like, "You're not good enough." Right? And
Yeah,
it
and
drives me nuts.
it's the opposite of everything I stand for.
Mhm.
I
Likewise.
don't know, based on someone's social media presence, if they need me as a coach.
Right.
I That's the height of arrogance to me.
Mm. Mhm.
I I would much rather put myself out there in a it's vulnerable. It's scary
Mhm.
because someone might look at what I have to offer in my perspective and say, I don't want that. But that's good. That's fine. It's better that we find out now in my marketing than, 3 sessions down the road when they're mad about something that I said.
Mhm. Yeah, they're not your people.
Exactly. I don't need to be everybody's cup of tea.
No, I am definitely not everybody's cup of tea for sure. Because I say it like it is. I don't beat around the bush. And a lot of people don't like that. They're like, well, you're a little rough. I'm like, yes, I understand. But should I lie to them and drag them along for what? So you know what? Rip that Band-Aid off. Let's hear the truth, because there is so much honesty in these words. The truth will set you free, but the truth will give you the real deal.
A
Right?
couple of bruises along the way, perhaps.
It's okay if you can't take a bruise, then man, get out of the game. Not for you to play.
Bruises heal.
They do. Egos. They have a way of getting in the way for some people. And I always tell anybody that I know, I said, if you ever see my ego, please punch it in the face, because it doesn't belong here with us. And then I had somebody say, well, you need an ego. You have to have an ego. So what do you mean? Well, to be good in everything that you do. I said, it's not an ego. It's just who I am. It's I see ego as somebody who thinks they're better than someone else. That's how I see ego, right? And a lot of times, if I walk into a room full of martial artists, I'm like, wow, the ego in here is so thick I can cut it with a sword, right? And sometimes I don't even want to walk into a room where there's so much ego because everyone is putting everybody else down just by the looks and the stares that they get. And I think that that's harmful when we can all let go of our egos and really be there for one another, right? So one of the things, and this conversation is very interesting because my fiance says to me, what do you think of that one? What do you think of this one? What do you think of that one? And I'll say the same thing. And then I go, yeah, but I got a man crush on him. She's like, you got a man crush on him? I'm like, yeah. And she goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, I'm not gay, but if I ever decided to be gay, I would be gay with him because he's just amazing, right? But it's not my cup of tea, right? That's not what I want to do physically. But the personality is so beautiful that there's nothing wrong with saying I have a man crush on a person, even if you're not sexually attracted to them. And there is an attraction, but it's not sexual, right?
There's actually a word for that.
Tell me.
A platonic crush
Okay.
is called a squish.
A squish.
A squish.
I have a squish. You're teaching me so much today. Thank you.
I just love the word, and you mentioned it, and it
Yeah.
makes me so happy.
Makes you squish your face. All right? This is a very, very, Anneke, I got to tell you, this is a very interesting conversation. And I'm sure you remember, but when you first reached out to me and you asked to be on my show, what was my thing I said to you? I said, well, I didn't say you were young, but I said, do you have any experience? And the reason was because you look so young. And to me, and I even, when I told you and we spoke, I said, it's a compliment, right? Because, and you are young, right? You're 31, that's still young, but you didn't look 31. You looked 18, 17. And so that is a compliment because when you're 64, you want to look 31. You want to feel that as well. And Mandy Robinson, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a heart. She's an incredible human being as well. When you reached back out, and I don't think you were offended by what I said, because I didn't want somebody who didn't have experience as a coach. And there's nothing wrong with somebody who's just starting out. If they're just becoming a coach, that's awesome. I encourage it. I say, do all the work. Make sure that you don't hurt anybody along the way, that you're honest with people and say, hey, listen, I'm just starting out, but I'm maybe one step ahead of you. Let me help you get to where I am. And by the time you get to where I am, I'm a step further, as long as you continually grow as a coach. And I encourage coaches to definitely reach out and become better. But that's why for my show, I want to have people who have some experience like yourself. And so that's why I asked that question.
I promise I was not offended in the least. And it's real. Like I said, coaching is unregulated. So there's not always a credential that you can point to and say, look, I I learned the thing.
Yeah.
And I am getting credentialed through CTI right now. Same program that my mother did, 20 odd years ago. I'm almost done, but yeah, it's because ethics and standards are very important to me.
Beautiful, beautiful. This has been a very enlightening conversation. And I want to thank you for the time today that you've given us. And you've taught me some new words. I appreciate you. Squish. I like that word. It's such a cool word, right? I'll have to tell my fiance, I have a squish. And I know that she does too. So, and for me, it's always about the beauty of another human being. It's not whether they're male or female. And even though I am not homosexual or gay or however you want to put it, I do find people of the same sex attractive, not physically, but I guess emotionally or where they are as a human being. And so sometimes it's not about even women, right? Even though I may not be physically attracted to them, I am deeply attracted to who they are as a person. So for me, I have an attraction for humans. And if we were blind, that would be so much easier. All of us, not just me, right? Because there would be no judgment on skin color. Right? There would be no judgment on so many different things. But we judge a person because of how they look, not because of who they are. And that's a battle that we will always fight. And I think that as long as there's people like you and myself, we'll be better off because of it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being so beautiful.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for taking a chance on me, answering that first message. It's been absolutely wonderful.
It has been for me too. Thank you again. And before we go, what would you like to say to people?
I think I'll say just this. Your shame is lying to you. Your shoulds are lying to you. Your ego is lying to you. And you know your real worth.
That's right.
And if you're interested in talking, again, I do a free confidential consultation. You can find me at allforlovecoaching.com.
And it's going across the screen, and it's also in the chat. So take a look, people. Yes. Go allforlovecoaching.com. Yeah. Anneke, thank you again for being here and for being you. Stay you forever. Thank you.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Everybody have an amazing rest of your day. And remember, we have a master class tomorrow at 2:30. Join us. It's in the comments. Love to see you there. Take care.